Hello everyone and welcome back to the SteemTrail Gaming Podcast. Today is the 21st May of 2018. My name is Kralizec and I am one of your hosts for the evening. The second host is Tygergamer. Hello Tiger, how are you doing?
I'm doing excellent. How about you?
I think I'm doing pretty well. Still waiting for my letter from the social services, so I don't have to pay that much money, but I really hope it will fall through. But we are here to talk about video games. So Tiger, tell us, what have you been playing this week?
Well, the main game I played this week was called Omen Sight, which the best way I can describe it is a action, adventure, murder mystery.
Okay, I think it was the game you recommended last week. Am I correct?
Yes.
So,
yes.
How is it?
I'll say this: my recommendation was justified. I mean, I beat Omen Sight. It cost $20, but it took me like around 6-7 hours to beat it. And I beat it like in 2 sittings, and I really enjoyed it.
Oh, that's good. So an action-based murder mystery. Yeah, that seems like a really weird set of concepts to try to put in together. How exactly is that done?
Well, of course, the murder mystery stuff is tied into the story. Whereas, like, the action that you do is in the combat. And when they are together, it makes an excellent experience.
And which part of the experience do you think is better?
I would say the story, even though I really enjoyed the combat, the story actually had me guessing all the way through the game.
So I wondered, is there an option to fail to solve the mystery?
No.
Ah, damn. Because I would have really liked that if there was like a way for you, you went through this game but you missed that one essential clue, so now you're fucked. Play again.
Well, fortunately for me, okay, like the way the game plays is pretty much the setup for the game is you play as a harbinger who appears at the end of days, and you pretty much playing through the same day over and over, but with different scenarios here and there to make it feel different each time. And I'll say this, that right there, even though it might sound so monotonous, they made it work so well in the game.
That's good to hear. And what about the combat? How does that feel?
Well, it just feels just like any other third-person hack and slash game.
Is there a combo system, something like that?
You can chain your different abilities together. Like you get ability to grab enemies and throw them, and you also got an ability to slow down time. So you can pick up an enemy, throw him, then slow down time, and make a chain reaction in that. So.
That actually does sound cool. I always found the concept of time manipulation to be a thing that is underutilized in games, and when it is utilized, it's not usually done really well. Usually it's done through bullet time, and it's just yeah, you can now move 5 times faster, but adding combos to that does sound fun, to be honest.
Yeah, it is. But yeah, I really enjoyed Omen Sight, and if any of y'all have not yet played the game, I highly recommend going and play it.
That's always good to hear. So I
Yeah.
myself got to play a game called Spartan Fist this week. A little bit of a disclaimer: I got this game for free from the devs, but I'm going to be critical of it actually. So the disclaimer is not that much necessary, I think. So the game itself is about punching people. I think it's pretty obvious from the name. It's got a fist in its name. It's about punching. You know, makes sense. And the punching, your combat mechanics are actually pretty cool. You got playing, like different stances. You can find different fists. Each has their own different mechanics. There's a way to upgrade them. It has roguelite features. But there are two big problems with the game. Let me actually start with a smaller one for once. The enemies all do essentially all the same things. Some have an access to a larger move pool, but on average, all the enemies do exactly the same things. So once you learn to beat one enemy, you can beat pretty much every enemy. And this includes the bosses. The bosses don't have any really unique mechanics. Their attacks just do more damage, they have a larger area effect. So, it's really monotonous to a point where it becomes boring, to be honest. But that's not the biggest problem. The biggest problem is the game is not stable. It has crashed for me at the very least 20 times. And that's even after I got the release date patch. I was like, okay, maybe they're still like fixing things. So I wasn't really like, concerned about that before it actually got released because I got it before it released. But the issues, they were still there even after it released. On top of that, it's not really the cheapest game. They want, I think, $12 for it. They want 12.49 euros. So usually that's either $15 or $12.49. And for a game that becomes very quickly boring, and for a game that crashes pretty often, that's just not recommendable in my personal opinion. So the game is cool. It needs a little bit of work on the patching side of things. And I think you should wait for a sale if you want to buy this. And at the very least, wait for a patch that fixes the crashing. Because you like go into a new room, suddenly there's like, doo-doo! Oh, we're sorry, the game crashed. And you're like, oh, fuck this shit. I finally had a good combo of fists, and I was getting towards getting to the final boss. Yeah, so that's sort of sad, when you get a game for free. It looks great, like the concept was great, but it just didn't work out really. So at this moment, not a recommendation from me. So, did you get to play anything else this week?
Yes. I got to play this. I got to play a little bit of this game called Dragon's Crown Pro, which is a remastered version of Dragon's Crown that came out for the PS3 and Vita a few years back, and they finally released it for PS4.
So have you played it on either of the previous consoles?
No, I have not.
So
it's actually my first time playing it,
so how does it feel?
It actually feels good. Feels pretty good. It's like a mixture between an RPG and a beat 'em up, like a side-scrolling beat 'em up. So.
In what way is it a mix of an RPG and a side scroller?
Well, I, you can like choose between different classes, but so far I've chosen the basic fighter, which is a warrior.
Mm-hmm.
You can also choose from a dwarf, wizard, an Amazon,
Mm-hmm.
just to name a few. You get so many others, and also to mention, you can play this game in co-op as well, which I've not tried yet. So.
Oh. And the beat 'em up, I guess, is just your regular beat 'em up. Just punch stuff until it dies.
Or slash and stab, whatever weapon you have.
Yeah, obviously. That sounds like a cool concept in general. How well is it remastered?
Oh well, unfortunately, I didn't get to play the previous. I didn't get to play the original release, so
Mm-hmm.
to me this is a new game, so I can't tell the difference between the original and the new
Oh, I
because
meant
I
whether
hadn't
you
played the
encountered like
original release.
bugs or glitches or this sort of stuff because that's
Uh,
pretty
so
common
far,
in remasters.
so far I've not encountered any bugs, which is good.
That's ideal.
Yeah.
So the other game I got to play this week, again, disclaimer, I got this game for free from the devs, is called Cholera. And it's actually a puzzle platformer with really interesting graphics using a lot of contrast between darkness and color. It has a lot of story narrative, but honestly, I've not been interested in that at all. The puzzling element itself is pretty cool, but the game is a pretty obvious port from a mobile game because it uses a single, essentially, button, whatever you want to use, essentially on your keyboard, to control the whole game. Because you're playing like this girl, and every time you press that button, you transform into this block, and you have the ability to jump using this button, and that's all you can do. And you need to jump at precise times. You can jump off of walls to change your direction. And I love such simplistic concepts. It allows for amazing creative gameplay when it's done correctly, and I do think it is done very correctly here. Sadly, again, with this game, I encountered technical problems. This time, I wasn't... The first time I downloaded this game, I know I just tried it out like for 20 minutes, and I was like, okay, I need to work on Spartan Fist because I'm getting ready to make the review on that. And then I came back to Coloro once Spartan Fist was essentially done on my part. And I started the game, and it was stuck on a loading screen forever. So I shut it down, tried again.
Oh wow.
Shut it down, tried again, reinstalled the game, restarted my computer. Then I noticed I have a driver update, so I was like, okay, maybe it updated itself and it needs newer drivers or something. That didn't help. So I messaged the devs, and they were like, oh, nobody else has this problem, or at least nobody told us about it. Would you mind backing up your files, trying to reinstall it again? So I did exactly that. They even sent me a new code. And from the new code, the game has been working. So maybe there was just some technical bug in the first version I downloaded that got stuck in it. It seemed the second version they sent me is working flawlessly, and there has been a patch since that happened. So I know. I think it was just like some pre-production bug that was really weird, and you had to have a specific instance of hardware or a specific combination of things happening. So luckily that's been resolved. And otherwise the game is, yeah, it is good. If you like simple
That's
games.
good to hear.
Yeah, if you like simple games with good graphics and an interesting storyline, Coloro is decently, is obviously a good choice, though it is again quite pricey. They want $13 for this. I haven't been able to find it on the Android store, but I assume it is available somewhere on mobile because I can't imagine this thing not being released for mobile. It seems super well done for mobile as it has a single button controls. That's ideal for mobile. But yeah, if you like puzzle platformers, yeah, it is a good choice. It's just a bit pricey. Maybe you wait for a sale if you're, well, a bit of a Scrooge.
Okay.
Okay, did you get to play anything else this week?
No, unfortunately, I did not.
Well, neither did I. So, let's switch on to the news segment. And we'll be starting with the fact that Steam is now threatening to remove games from its store because they include sexual content. So this started up with a tweet by HoneyDev, which are the developers behind a game called Honeypot, saying, "I've received an email from Valve stating that Honeypot violates the rules and guidelines for pornographic content on Steam and will be removed from the store unless the game is updated to remove said content." Then a few other developers came out, "Yeah, we've been informed that our content is also violating these rules." This was from Nico Work as at Nova, then some squiggly lines for their game Tropical Liquor, and from Loopysoft, which are the devs behind Mutiny. They actually, well, this guy actually came up with a bunch of tweets, and he said, "We're following the guidelines to the letter. And we are really scared for our livelihoods because getting removed from Steam on the PC side of things is pretty scary for a developer. You know, they control almost 80% of the market, and the rest is held by Blizzard when it comes to shops, a little bit for EA's Origin, you know, these services. But I am really not liking this.
Me either.
If you look at all the games, because I doubt that many of our viewers will really have a big knowledge about these games all share one thing in common, and that is their visual art style. Their visual art style is your typical Japanese-looking, big-breasted, scantily clothed women. We all know what Japanese people like when it comes to their drawings. And I think the most scary thing here is the fact that other games which also include sexual content, let's say The Witcher or Conan Exiles, have not received these letters. I think that is the most scary thing. So it's essentially a crusade against this sort of art style that is, let's be frank, it is very often used for sexualized content. But I personally don't have a problem with sexualized content. So,
me either.
To me, this seems like early attempts at censorship. It always starts with sex. Always. Because it's very easy to say, but what about the children? You know? So, what's your point of view on this?
Well, honestly, this is complete, blatant censorship on these certain types of games on Steam.
Yeah, I do agree with you. And what do you think they should do it, and whether they do have the right to remove these games from their store?
Well, honestly, it's a store, but I mean, one good example that you brought up earlier was coding. Like if Steam were to remove all games with sexualized content there goes a good majority of their library on Steam.
Well, I think the bigger issue here is the fact that, well, I wouldn't call it censorship per se at this point, because censorship is very hard to define. But
Yeah,
I would say it as like they're trying out how far they can go. This is, you know, their like first attempt, and it's always sex that is the first. Like, have you heard of what's happening in Britain right now when it comes to porn?
No.
Okay, take a look into this, because this story is amazing. Essentially, they're going to ban all porn sites in the UK, except for a specific 18 run or allowed by the government. And if you want to access them,
Oh, wow.
you have to buy a special permit. It's not in law right now, but it's getting pretty close to passing. So it's always sex that is censored first, because so many people we are here to the argument, just think of the children. If you want to protect the children, enforce ID checks. It's not that hard to do. So I'm really hoping that Steam does realize that this is a stupid decision and that they should reverse it as soon as possible. Okay, let's stay on a sort of a similar subject, but, well, different. But similar because the people who will be arguing against this will be coming from exactly the same point of view as protect the children. So the United States Supreme Court has struck down a federal law that was against gambling on sports. And to be clear, we're not talking about gambling in terms of playing for money. We're talking about, you know, your typical gambling, and that's betting. Betting who wins. And there was a law from 1992 that banned betting in the United States. And now it has been struck down by the Supreme Court. And, well, that means that individual states in America can now decide whether they want to allow betting on both esports and sports to be a good thing in their state. So, I want to hear your opinion first. Do you think it's a good thing that betting is allowed?
Honestly, yeah, I mean, because more money entering the economy, but also going against the thing of the children's side of things, have ID checks. You know, like if you want to bet on a sport, make sure that people have the IDs on them. So it ain't just random people just going up there and betting and them being like underage.
Yeah. So I also think it's a good thing at large, because it will mean that more money will flow into the gaming industry, even though it will be likely mostly through advertisements. But it will also mean, let's say you're a pro player in, I know, CSGO. Maybe this means you will be able to get a sponsorship by one of the betting sites. On the other hand, yes, there is the question of protecting minors. And yeah, I do completely agree with your solution. Make age checks in forms of ideally some sort of ID pass a mandatory thing. That's exactly how it works here. If you want to register on a betting site, they will be like, okay, send us an image of your ID. And it's not that hard of a thing to do. So, I'm hoping that it will be done well, because if it isn't done well,
Yeah.
then it could pose a problem to minors. I agree with that. If it's just like, yeah, you can bet whoever you are, we could end up with 12 years old with hundreds and thousands of dollars in debt to these betting companies.
Yeah.
And that's obviously a bad thing. I don't think anybody can argue that that would be a good thing. But just make the ID checks mandatory. It's not that hard. Seriously, America.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on with next piece of news. It's another week. It's another swatting incident. This time against Felix Langyo, known as XQC, which you may have remember because he played for Dallas Fuel before, well, he quit because controversies, yay. And it seems somebody decided to be a funny guy, sent the police at his place. Interestingly now, the interesting part of this piece of news is the fact that one of his friends, Brennan Hook at Brentcast on Twitter, tweeted, "Just check on Felix, he is safe, just shook up, ended up being a noise complaint from neighbors, not a SWAT attempt after I checked with management, thank God." I think this is their attempt at trying to downplay this whole incident. But in all honesty, it was a swatting incident because I saw the video. Suddenly, their Felix was like, "What the fuck is going on?" He put his hands up. You know, you wouldn't put your hands up just to police who were like in your room unless they were pointing guns at you. And I don't think the police would come to his apartment, guns blazing, if it was just a noise complaint. So, yeah. On the other hand, I think maybe Brennan Hook downplaying this could potentially be a good thing. And let me try to explain my reasoning why. So, most swatters do this because they think it's funny. For some reason.
Yeah, and they want the attention.
Yes. And if you downplay it, you're not giving them that attention. So we're essentially promoting it somehow but no, please don't ever swat anybody. And punch anybody who even thinks about it. But yeah. What do you think of this? Do you think it's a good idea to downplay swatting incidents? Or should we be honest about it?
Well, I mean, yeah, have a, like some degree of honesty, but also, yeah, I give them props for downplaying it and like saying, "Hey, not a big deal," because then, in a way, it's kind of deterring the swatter from swatting that person again.
Yeah,
or any other person swatting that same person.
Oh, so. Swatting anybody, really. And I really hope this trend ends as soon as fucking possible. So let's move on. Let's move on from the bad news of this week into neutral news. So Sony has decided to discontinue production of physical games for the PlayStation Vita. And you're the PlayStation guy, so go first, you know?
Yeah, honestly, my opinion on this is, yeah, of course, Sony jumped ship with the Vita years ago.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it's having a slow, painful death. And my opinion, I really hate that because I actually owned a Vita. I freaking loved it.
You know, I think it was a little bit too ahead of its time and it was too unfocused. It had features people didn't really want, like the light sensor. Who the fuck cares about a light sensor? but it was too expensive. That was its main flaw when it launched compared to the 3DS.
Actually, no, no, no. Its main flaw at launch was having overpriced Sony exclusive memory cards for Vita.
Oh yeah,
that was its greatest flaw.
Yeah, that's probably a reason on top of that. But I think it was PlayStation's attempt at making a Switch, essentially.
Before the Switch was announced.
Yes, on the concept of the Switch, to be more precise. But I think it just came too early. And I think at that time, people weren't ready for that kind of a console. It was the beginning of the time of smartphones, the beginning of the time of tablets. It's the same thing with the Nvidia Shield.
Yeah.
It's essentially the same thing as a Vita and a Switch. But it was just too early. People need to get used to these ideas. It's the same thing like you wouldn't buy a notebook in the 60s unless you essentially needed it. But you will buy a notebook these days because you got used to it and they're usable at this point. So, I think it's a good thing that the Vita is dying because maybe we could see a better one done this time correctly by Sony. A handheld console by
Hopefully,
Sony
yeah.
To compete with the Switch.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, between the 3DS and the Vita, in my opinion, even though the Vita didn't have that many like great exclusives, they had a few. They had like a few great games on there, but it didn't have as much of a vast library as like 3DS. But I will say this though, the Vita felt a lot more better to play on than the 3DS did.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the good news of this week. And let's call this week's good theme Gamers Care. Because I think the news of this week
there you go.
do show that we gamers care about our communities. So let's start with Overwatch and its Pink Mercy skin, which has managed to raise almost $10 million for breast cancer research.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's really... If we wanted to make like a short footnote, we could just say awesome. I think the interesting thing is how many people actually bought the skin. So, making a bit of a, calculation. So let's say it was exactly $10 million. And the skin costs $14.99. That's 667,111 gamers who bought the skin. Likely it was somewhere around that number. I would say 650,000 people is a good way to round this up. And I think that's way more people than ever added to any charity from a single hobby.
Yeah.
And it just makes me proud, to be honest, to say this. Gamers do care. And often we are portrayed in so many negative ways. And it pisses me off to no end.
Yeah.
This is the kind of stuff we need to be pushing in their faces.
Yes. And not to mention we're sometimes scapegoats as well for other stuff that people want to blame stuff on us for.
Yeah, it will take another 60 years before that's not happening, sadly. And there will still be idiots who will try to do it even after the 60 years have passed. But yeah. I actually love the quote by Stephanie Kaufman, who is the Strategic Alliances Officer at the Breast Cancer Research Fund. She said, This partnership will be a literal game changer for those impacted by breast cancer. Blizzard Entertainment has made an incredible commitment to activate change for women's health by mobilizing the gaming community worldwide to raise critical funds for life-saving cancer research. And I don't think we can put it in a better way.
That's right.
You just need to focus on these things. Not to report only on the negative.
Yeah.
Report also on the positive.
That's right.
And to stick with our positive theme, let's talk about Microsoft revealing their Xbox One adaptive controller. So this is a controller created with one single focus: accessibility for the disabled. And I will be honest with you, when I first saw this thing, because first of all, it was just an image leak, and I was like, is this real? What's the fucking use of this? What's the point of this? Because what it is, it's a rectangle with two huge buttons on it and a little D-pad. It's like, I couldn't have imagined like that many people using this. But then I saw how many accessories they have ready for this. They have like a thing so you can press the buttons using your feet. So you can press the buttons using your shoulders. And then I realized, yes, it has a purpose. And I don't think Microsoft will ever make their money back from developing this thing. But, again, it shows that not everything has to be centered around profit. It shows you that we gamers, and even game developers, and even the people who make gaming hardware, care. This time about people with disabilities.
Yep.
So this controller will be releasing sometime later this year. There isn't a set date yet, and it will be costing $100. We obviously don't know how much the accessories will cost, but hopefully they won't be that expensive. So what do you think of this stuff?
Yeah, hopefully. I think it's awesome that Microsoft developed something like this. I mean, shoot, I know, like, I know this ain't talked about as much, but I mean, you'd be surprised at all the people around the world who have like physical or mental disabilities that would love to play games but cannot. So I think this is a good way to give them more accessibility.
Yeah,
in this industry.
I completely agree. And I'm very glad that Microsoft has stepped in and tried to create this. If it was just, that rectangle with two buttons, I would have criticized it to no end, because that would just make zero sense and would be usable for close to zero people. But with the accessories, that's the game changer. That is the way to do it. Have a controller that is easy to use and can be adapted.
Yes.
Okay, and let's go to our last segment of the news. The weekly Fortnite news. Because there's always something about Fortnite. I almost am starting to despise it just for this single fact. But this time we really can't avoid it, as Fortnite has been finally announced for Android, and it will be coming sometime during the summer. We don't know exactly when. We do know that there is a release window, but that doesn't tell us that much. And we do know that there will be several features that are now available on iOS, but they came out with the announcement. And there are essentially two big features. First is voice chat. which I find is a good thing sometimes. I'm very glad that they decided to include a mute button as well. But the other feature, the one I think is actually more important towards the success of mobile Fortnite, and that is a customizable heads-up display. So you can decide where your D-pad will be, where your abilities will be, where will your jump button be. And I think that is just something that action games, especially on mobile, have been sort of ignoring. Very often their HUDs are just fucking awful. Let's be blatant about that. And the ability to customize it is something that would have saved so many good games that were just shit because they were uncontrollable. So, do you have any opinion on this?
Well, I think the Android version of Fortnite's long overdue. It's about time that they release that on Android devices.
I know and why it's harder to do it. Finish.
Okay. And I think it's also awesome that they're allowing more customization for the HUD in their games. So.
And there's a very easy reason why Android gets most of the games later, and that's the fact that there are so many more hardware combinations you can encounter. And you need to make sure your game runs at least reasonably well on that device. But obviously, Fortnite is the biggest game ever. If you want to have fun, go play it, and soon you will be able to have fun also on your Android phone or tablet. And that concludes our news section for the week, unless you have something you would like to add.
No. Sure don't.
Then let's move on to the last section, game recommendations. Why don't you start this week?
Well, first off, I'd like to recommend State of Decay 2, which is coming out for Xbox One and PC tomorrow, so coming to give that game a try. And no, I'm not tired of the zombie genre, so.
I don't understand that. I've been tired of zombies since like 5 years ago, and I'm getting sort of tired of comic book movies as well, to be honest. Not that I don't enjoy them. It's just I would like to see a new genre abused.
and then you get tired of that one.
Yeah, exactly. It's the never-ending cycle of life.
Yeah.
I got only one game to recommend this week, and that's called The Office Quest, which has the most amazing description ever. So let me read that. Every day in the office, it's the same. Clicking the same keys, attending the same boring meetings, wearing the same fluffy monster onesies. That's just... what? It's an indie adventure game. It's coming out in 2 days on the 24th. I think it's coming out only to PC at this moment, as far as I know. It has a pretty cutish graphics, somewhat reminiscent of 70s art. And it gets people in fluffy monster onesies. What else do you want? Okay, let's go to something more normal for a recommendation. Please go forth.
My last recommendation for this week will be Detroit Become Human, which comes out for PS4 this Friday. And fortunately, I had to try out the demo that released on the PS Store last month. And playing that demo actually got me excited to actually play the full games this week.
So hopefully you will tell us more about it next week.
Oh, yeah.
Because this slowly brings us to the end of the show. Let's do a quick chill. I will start this week. You can find me at Kralizec Gaming on YouTube and it's Kralizec on Steemit.
And you can find me on YouTube at Tygergamer and on Steam at Tygergamer.
And, well, that's it for the week today, guys. We both hope you enjoyed today's video, today's show. If you did, maybe you want to give us an upvote here on YouTube and subscribe to the channel. If you're watching on Steemit, be sure to leave an upvote and to follow the blog. And either way, be sure to drop in a comment on any of the topics discussed today. And with that being said, see you guys later with more gaming content.
Y'all have a good one.